Well, I'm at the Red House with Ashley Gulizia of Shady Acres Food Forest. And
Hey.
thanks for hanging out.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's just start with this. A food forest.
See.
What is it?
I've kind of looked up a food forest. So I think there's like 7 elements to it. So roots, bushes, trees, canopies, vines. That's all I can remember. But so I do have rows, which I think I'm going to end up turning these little plots into more food forests. But the style that I grow is very similar, I guess, to nature. Like,
Yeah.
I just recently started growing in rows. And I remember when I was in California, I had a roommate ask me, like, why don't I grow in rows? And I was like, I've never even thought about that. I understand why people grow in rows, but the food forest thing just kind of complements my style of gardening. I don't like pull every weed. Things are very overgrown. I let things go to seed. I actually brought you a pear from my pear tree.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I planted that the first year I bought my house, which was September 2018. And so I guess it's like almost 4 years old, and there's so many pears on it.
That's awesome.
And I planted, I think, like 8 other fruit trees in a very small area that's fenced in. And so then I have kiwi vines, grapevines.
Kiwi vines.
Kiwi
Wow.
berries.
Okay.
Yeah, so like the really small ones.
Gotcha.
Which are cold hardy. I saw a flower this year, but I didn't see any fruit. And so hopefully next year.
That's awesome. So, yeah, that spirit, sort of reflecting nature, is something I'm new to. And it seems to be maybe a growing appeal to younger people getting involved in agricultural stuff. You said it just never occurred to you to do it. Otherwise, it sounds like. So how did you start gardening anyway? When did you start gardening?
I think it all started when I first moved out of my parents' house. My mom always had plants in the backyard and in the house. And I remember she came over with ripped some spider plants off of her plant. And she just brought them. They didn't have roots or anything, and we put them in dirt together. I remember this. And they grew really big, and that was really exciting. And so I just started, like, playing with, like, planting stuff in the backyard. And then every place that I moved to, I always wanted a backyard. And it wasn't necessarily to grow stuff, but just to, like, go outside and have some kind of nature. And it just evolved. I don't know. Like, I moved into this house that was like an old punk house, and everyone called it Shady Acres. They had shows there and stuff, but the reason why I wanted to live there, it was pretty run down, but it was like the biggest lot in downtown San Jose. And so that's where I really started growing stuff.
That's in San Jose.
California.
Okay.
Yeah. And people would come and be like, oh my God, things are growing back here. Like, I would find bottle caps, toy dinosaurs, nails everywhere. But I just planted stuff randomly and everywhere. And so I'm like, oh, don't step on that. And I still today, I'm like, oh, don't step on that. So I'm like trying to do pathways now, so that I can show people like all this like cool stuff that's growing.
Yeah. So, you're originally from California?
Silicon Valley.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess different kind of shit grow out there probably.
Yeah, there's not really, where I'm from, there wasn't really seasons. So that was like the hardest thing to learn when I got here. I'm like, I can't grow a tomato plant in October.
How has that been to adjust to?
Very exciting.
Do you like winter?
I do. It's like it's really fun to do manual labor in winter because you are bundled up and then you just start taking stuff off. Where like summers are really fucking hard. I have a really hard time farming in summer.
Like our summer in particular?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Humidity. I've been here for 6 years and I'm still like, God damn, it's hot.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is hot.
And then it used to, like, I feel like maybe 2 years ago, it was raining so much in summer. And it is not raining.
Yep.
At least, like, I know we got rain last week, but it passed my house. So I'm watering so much.
Yeah.
And I used to be on city water or, like, irrigating with city water, but I had a friend's dad help me out because there was, like, a well on my property. But it must not be too deep because it turns off. Like, it drains the water.
Really?
Yeah, and so I don't really... Kind of makes me nervous that I might be taking a little bit too much groundwater. Yeah, but maybe it's just not a deep well.
So, okay, I keep having different things I'm curious about. One thing, as you saw, as I mentioned, I'm kind of have a small pumpkin obsession. Can you grow those in California? Can you grow like fall and winter crops in California easily?
Yeah, I'm not sure if garlic you can grow, but I feel like people grow a bunch of garlic in California because I feel like garlic needs a frost. But they do grow crazy amounts of stuff in California. Like, most of our food comes from California.
I don't know these things.
Mexico and California.
Mexico and California.
Yeah, I mean, they grow strawberries all year in California. That's why in December you can get strawberries.
Yeah.
Which don't taste like strawberries to me, but...
No?
It's interesting when you grow your own food and, like, pick it off of the plant, how different it tastes when it's in a grocery store.
Yeah. I didn't know till I started growing cucumbers that I liked cucumbers, if I'm being honest with you.
That's what my friend, Brittany, says, because she has a farm, and she's like, I hate cucumbers, and they grew a bunch this year. And she's like, I love cucumbers.
They're so damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so different, though. Yeah.
So with your style of gardening, with the like natural sort of like replicating natural conditions, are there limits to what you can grow, like with vegetation like what we have that's been sort of designed to be in gardens, like how we most usually understand them to look and function and all that? Are there things that aren't compatible with that type of gardening?
I do garden in rows.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so I don't know why, but I put fruit trees in the rows. So I don't know what that's about, but I feel like I can grow anything.
Yeah.
I haven't ran into that. I mean, I've tried to grow stuff and then did it at the wrong time and had failures. But I've grown green beans. I think you can grow anything. Yeah. I don't think it has to be like in a row.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, so let's jump back into your bio. So were you just in California? Like, what was in between California when you first started planting things in the backyard versus being here now?
So I moved back in with my parents after I lived at the Shady Acres house. And that's really where the name came from. So I moved back in with my parents, looked for a place to live, had a big German Shepherd at the time. And so, like, studios were $2,300 a month. And I wasn't making nearly that a month. So my parents were both retired, and they decided to move to Sparta in North Carolina in the mountains. So it was either, like, I try to pay rent somewhere or I move with them. And so I looked up the housing here. And I was like, what? I'm coming with you. I'm going to buy a house. You know, like I'm really good at saving money. And I worked with Whole Foods for so long. I was in management. And so I was able to, you know, do like a leave of absence and then start up at Winston. But so I moved with them to Sparta, stayed with them for like 2 years, saved money, and looked for a house for about a year. Yeah.
And you found one that you like?
In Walkertown, yeah.
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 And so, are you able now to kind of do the garden and the farmers market stuff pretty much full time?
So this is my first year doing it full time.
Nice.
Yeah, and everyone's like, "You make enough money selling stuff?" I'm like, "I do," but I don't have like a car payment.
Yeah.
I live super simple. You know, like I don't have crazy bills. I don't have kids. And so I don't like make a lot of money,
Yeah.
but I am able to pay all my bills and eat.
That, I mean, I think is pretty consistent with the whole, I don't know what, the spirit of farming in a lot of ways is just like, yeah, you're going to spend a lot of days at home and you're going to like cultivate, you're going to cultivate this environment where you get food from it and stuff. And, you know, for a lot of people, when that gets to homesteading, that includes meats and that includes like everything that can be imagined to be self-sufficient, you know, but that lifestyle often does come with the sacrifice of, say, going out to bars all the time or going out to restaurants all the time or whatever. You got too much food you got to eat to do all of that, to like live frivolously.
Right.
Just kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And then it's cool because you can trade with people at the market with what they don't sell. Yeah. And so I think last month, or June, one June or July, I can't remember, but I didn't go to a grocery store.
Really?
I did go to a food bank. I went to 2 food banks, and you know they don't really give you like fresh food, so it was like a bunch of canned food and pastry shit that I ate some, but I was really excited to not be able to not go to the grocery store.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. I worked at Whole Foods for 15 years, and I'm like, I cannot go and like I just hate grocery stores.
Yeah.
And I mean, whatever, we like need them, but I think it could be so much better with buying local stuff. Like we don't have to buy everything from California.
Yeah, that's, let's see. Well, I was talking to Lauren Dubinsky. Do you know her? Lauren Dubinsky is Flora Cult on Instagram or whatever. And so she's like in the downtown community teaching people how to do backyard garden stuff or whatever.
In Winston?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
She's doing a lot of garden consulting, I think. Also her own gardening. And, you know, I think she talks a bit about, like, how she told me a bit about, like, you know, sort of how many people in the country were growing their own food, like, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And, like, the amount that's changed now, how many people are absolutely wholly dependent on grocery stores. I think that's probably a horrible idea. Like, I think we should probably at least be in the habit of knowing how to produce food ourselves. I get that not everybody's going to, you know, but and not everybody's going to be as good at it as others or whatever. But yeah, I mean, even to what you just said, like even for those people who aren't going to do it themselves, having that option to buy locally and like benefit your own local economy while also cutting out some of the like carbon emissions of long distance deliveries, like seems like an obvious good idea.
Yeah. And like a lot of farmers don't sell all their stuff.
Yeah.
And like farming is hard. And when you're not like selling through your stuff, it's, yeah, you get to eat it or freeze it, but it's still also like, damn, like I hope next week's better. Yeah. I think I read something like in 1920s, people grew like 50% of their diet. That is not that long ago.
No, it's not.
And that's a big amount that people were growing.
Yeah.
I definitely like want to get into rabbits. I've heard that those can just like make so much babies and meat essentially. Yep. I have chickens, layers, but I have to slaughter like 7 roosters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I am excited to do it because I'm trying to live like this homesteading lifestyle, and that is what comes with it.
So you have 7 males right now that you...
I think I have 10.
Okay.
So I have 3 that I'm going to save.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
3 that you're going to save. So you're going to... How long have you had these chickens?
I've had 2 of the roosters for 3 years.
Really?
And one of them I don't want to slaughter, but I think there is something with the 3rd generation. You can't have the same rooster. And then I have this really beautiful white rooster, but it's a really mean rooster to all the hens.
Yeah.
And so he's got to go. And then there's just others that are babies that are going to have to go too.
Yeah. I mean,
there's one that's really friendly, so that one's staying.
Yeah. That's kind of the rules of chickens. And that's part of what's kept me from getting any yet. I'm not quite prepared. Like, I would love to have. I mean, I plan my first step is going to be to go ahead and get some for the eggs and just like make them a part of the whole gardening cycle here. But I haven't got mentally prepared quite yet to work in the whole slaughter thing to the mix. Like I think it's a hard leap for some people to make. You know?
And I eat meat, and so that's another part that I'm like, you have to do this.
That is what tempted me like 4 years ago when I first thought about it. Was like, I do eat meat, and I'm gonna keep eating meat. So it's like at some point I have to face that ethical dilemma, I suppose. Because about 4 years ago, I did start feeling kind of bad about it and started thinking, man, like, I definitely, I'm choosing to remain as out of touch with that reality as I can. The reality that, like, that these animal proteins come at the cost of animal life or whatever. Like, I just didn't want to have that thought for a really long time. And I think I still don't want to have the firsthand experience of it, you know?
And that's like being raised on a grocery store.
Yeah.
That's like we are not connected because of that. And I think that we could do it. Like when I do slaughter these roosters, because it's going to happen, I'm going to cry. Like I'm sure I'm going to be like, I'm sorry that I have to take your life. You know, I am going to like cut off all their wings and like use it in art, but and maybe some of the feathers. But it's just something that I can't have that many roosters. Like all my hens have feathers off their backs. Yeah.
I mean, like you really can't. You can't have that many roosters.
And I'm feeding them right now, and they do not like. Okay, they do eat ticks and fleas and stuff, so they serve like a slight purpose, but no. Like maybe if I like put them in a different area in a enclosure together, like they'd probably end up killing each other. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, just. Yeah.
Yep, I hear you completely. That's just how that goes. So you got chickens. You're thinking about rabbits in the future. So your goal to be as self-sufficient as possible.
I want to get into fishing, maybe a little deer hunting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, just to, because I don't know, it's so interesting. I have nut trees that I've never. Like I have black walnuts and they just always fall. And so I collected them last year and I was like, this is not happening. Like so much work. But it's like, well, maybe we aren't supposed to eat so many nuts, like things like that. And if I'm slaughtering, fishing all of my meat, I'm sure I'm not going to eat that much meat. Yeah. Because it's just going to be so different.
Yeah. Luckily, the wild pig problem hasn't made it all the way up here yet, but like that keeps popping up in my mind too as an option. Like could easily take some trips, I think as close as South Carolina or like Florida or definitely Texas, where apparently like 80% of the wild pigs I think in the US was it 80%? That sounds really high, but when I looked it up, I think it might have been that high. Pigs in Texas are just like destroying the state and destroying farms and stuff, which is another another example of areas in the country where like stuff like hunting, like controlling populations of wildlife, is actually like really necessary to the whole ecosystem of everything. Right. People like to often, or what do we say? Not all people, obviously, but those who maybe their compassion for animals overrides they're looking at the subject, understanding that the cost is necessary sometimes.
Balance.
The balance, yeah. Like I think the idea sometimes for some people is that humans aren't a part of that balance, but yeah, I mean, really, we've been a part of that balance in maintaining the amount of animals that exist in the wild for over 200,000 years. Yeah. So. Yeah, sometimes you gotta hunt shit and kill shit to live.
I mean, deer can make plants go extinct if they like a certain plant. They'll eat it, and so I don't. Did North Carolina used to have wolves? Yeah, and wolves like play such an important part in the balance of coyotes, deer.
Yeah, we used to have lots of gray wolves, I believe, and of course we exterminated all of them. And then I heard like 10 years ago, I think they had they either had or were reintroducing the gray wolf to like the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh.
So I don't know what the product of that has been, but yeah, I mean we have an incredible coyote problem.
Right.
Here.
I guess you can like kill a coyote anytime because there's so many.
I think so.
Which
yeah.
is pretty crazy.
We have some coyote hunting going on up here sometimes, yeah, because they're just, I mean, this is residential areas for the most part. As you can see, there's some little patches of farmland out here in Roll Hall, but most of it is developed land, and the coyotes are here, you know.
Right.
So like there's a den not far from here. We're sure right across the creek. You know, if houses keep going there, coyotes are gonna fucking be there.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And then like coyotes will eat like small deer. And so then there's just an unbalance with that.
Yeah.
And just balance is very important.
It is. When I first moved here, I remember I would see like 20 or 30 deer in the yard at a time sometimes. And also, I mean, maybe this is normal, but at some point there was like a lot of bucks, like a whole lot of bucks.
Wow.
And I have this weird video that I made of them. I could like zoom in really far on them, and on multiple deer, I started noticing they had like tumors all over their like their chest and their face and stuff. And you know, having talked to people, learned since that that was because there were too many of them in this community, so they were all like diseased and disgusting and stuff.
How crazy.
Yeah.
Damn. I wonder. I mean, that's probably, again, balance.
Yeah. Too many deer. They just start to have those problems, apparently.
Okay. How interesting.
So yeah. So you got here, made more sense, and then did you start gardening right away?
I did.
And was that just like, did you know you want to do the self-sufficient thing kind of as soon as you got here?
I just love plants.
Yeah.
So it was really just like I wanted to plant things and like keep in a lot. And I would have to I'd transplant and stuff because I was like, why did you plant this here? I really wish that I didn't plant anything my first year.
Really?
Because I'm still dealing with irrigation. Like I do not have proper irrigation set up. I wish I just would have slowed down a little bit. I was just really excited. Because I was working at Whole Foods and gardening. And so I wish I bought like irrigation stuff and a caterpillar tunnel, you know, credit carded it and paid it off while I was working. Because now it just feels like, ugh, I cannot do that. But I'm like, I am just trying to manifest some funding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's got to, I know there's like grants and shit out there. So I just got to get on the computer.
You know, there should be more. I'm sure there's grants for like farms, but I don't know what. So are you trying to do a homestead? Do you ever use that word?
Mm-hmm. I'm all over the place. I do have like some ideas because I have like 4 acres of woods. So I want to try to cut like a half an acre and do like 100-foot beds and really try to do like a market garden.
Yeah.
Because I actually mainly do flowers right now. 75% of my income is from flowers.
Really?
Yeah. Which I didn't know I like really like. Like I fell in love with flowers. I did. And then they're lucrative. Like people buy like a $15 bouquet from me. Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. And so you arrange the flowers yourself. You're not selling to necessarily flower shops or whatever.
I would love to grow more to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm not there at all.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah.
That's cool. And so at your farmers markets that you go to, that's one of the things people will buy off of you. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this when we first met. You do the one in King, right?
I did.
Oh, you don't do that one anymore?
No, I made $8 one day, and I was like, not ever coming back here.
I understand. So which ones do you do these days?
I just do the corner market in Greensboro on Saturday, 8 to 12.
Okay.
And then I do sell to Deep Roots Co-op on Thursdays.
Okay. And you don't do cobblestone?
I was trying. I have a friend that does cobblestone. I was trying to get him to talk to the person that runs it just to get like an in, but I've never heard back. But it would be the Wednesday market.
Oh, I didn't know they did a Wednesday market.
I guess there's like a later Wednesday market. I did do another market in Winston. I'm trying to do more things in Winston because I'm closer to there. And I really, like, I worked at Whole Foods there, so I know people in Winston, but I haven't spent much time at the markets. And I think it's mainly just cobblestone.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, now at Fancy Groceries, I don't know if they're actually they are doing a night market thing over there, which is in Ardmore. So it's like, it's probably a good neighborhood to sell to, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
I don't know if they're actually doing like a lot of farmers market stuff, but I know he's been doing some stuff. So anyway, I can pass you their stuff.
That would be
on
awesome.
Instagram, and you can see what there is there.
Yeah, hell yeah. And then there's like that little bar in Winston that does something. Monster
Cade?
Yeah, I think they do something in the parking lot sometimes.
I believe that.
Yeah, someone was telling me to look that up. Yeah. I just keep forgetting.
To me, it seems like that makes sense to, like, I don't know, but everybody in Winston that I do know seems to be like down with that type shit, like sees the value in local local produce.
Totally.
So probably a good market to be tapping into, especially more so than rural areas where they probably don't value that quite as much.
Yeah. Or they have their own garden. And then also the timing of these markets. I think King is like early in the afternoon. So it's really retired people. Where it's like fixed income. Like you might, I don't know, people after they get off from work.
Yeah. My neighbor told me, and this isn't a good business method, it's just something my neighbor told me. He said that when they first moved here, the other people that like are close to me, he said when they first moved here, down the road there was a guy with a garden or something, and he would just put shit at the end of his driveway with a mailbox or a little envelope or something that was like, give money if you want to, or whatever.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is like interesting. I'm sure he wasn't worried about how much money he might have made, but so for you that might not matter. But to your point, yeah, there might be a lot more people in those communities that are growing food, even not just for themselves but for their neighbors, just giving shit away, like me and like a bunch of everybody I know up here that does have a garden ends up doing, because we end up growing more than we are going to eat in a week.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is so awesome. I would love to get to a point where it would be like a donations-based thing.
Yeah.
Because I've heard people actually making good money because people who have money will donate more.
Right.
You know, and then it opens access to people who don't have money. That's why I like the corner market a lot, because they do like the SNAP thing, which is they double EBT. So if you bring $50 or whatever on your card, they give you $100.
That is cool.
That's super. And it's all from donations that they're able to double that.
Yeah.
Which is pretty
awesome.
wild. Yeah.
So in addition to farming, I guess, or in addition to growing your own food, like how far, like, are you somebody who, how far do you go with all this stuff? Like, do you want to make your own bullets? Do you want to like make your own clothes? How self-sufficient are you interested in being, I guess?
I have made t-shirts before. That shit is very time consuming.
I'll bet.
And just like, you have to have a lot of like, I love manual labor, so I don't think I'll be making my clothes anytime soon. I do buy thrift.
Yeah.
Which I guess is very eco-friendly. Which someone told me that. I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
But it's really like, to spend $20 on a t-shirt is just, and I don't even know, they're probably more than that now. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
This is crazy. And then it's like supporting, you know, really shitty work conditions in other countries.
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, I'll buy a dress every now and then at a store, but I find most stuff at thrift stores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of easy these days.
And here it's like cheaper.
I bet.
I mean, not so much Goodwill, but like the little mom and pop thrift stores.
Yeah.
I'm like, $2.
Yeah.
Sold. I did buy these Birkenstocks, which I was like, damn, these are hella expensive.
Bought those original?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, it's like a buddy of mine who's really into furniture or whatever. He knows what's good furniture and like what is the real deal. So he goes around to these thrift stores and sees that they don't know what they have, you know.
I love that.
And I guess that's like kind of the same thing as thrift. I can't think of any like specialized thrift stores necessarily that we have aside from maybe that place downtown. Jesus Christ, how do I Design Archive. It's probably the closest thing we have to like people who find things in thrift stores and then actually sell them at a price that
Is more
Yeah.
like, okay, that's, know, this is vintage. Like, I took a vintage Hawaiian t-shirt from my dad, and it's like made in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to sell this for like $150. And everyone's like, oh my God, I want this. I'm like, no. Like, I'm going to sell it to some fucking rich college kid. I mean, it's made in Hawaii. Like, do they still make t-shirts in Hawaii?
I have no idea.
Like, probably not.
Right.
It's all, China and shit. Birds of Paradise on the show. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yep. Always got to find the deals, you know.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Every opportunity.
Yeah, and like, I always tell myself like I'm farming like I'm in the Depression.
That's interesting.
Because I'm not gonna spend money on tons of shit when my income is very low.
Yeah.
And like, a lot of farmers spend a lot of money on stuff, and like, there's a burnout rate, and so it's like, I don't want to spend all this money and then burn out and just have to go get a job. I'd rather just like not make a lot of money and just slowly like build my soil up and just it's just slower.
Yeah.
And like, there is a lot of plastic in farming, and last year was my last year of using plastic covers for growing stuff through winter.
Mm-hmm.
This year I'm going to experiment with sheets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I've gotten at thrift stores.
Very cool.
For very cheap. Yeah, we'll see if it works. But there's a big thing like with starting plants flowers in fall and then having them for spring.
What do you mean a big thing? Like that's where the plastic comes in?
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I guess I just kind of learned that the last few years. Like, to get a spring harvest, you have to plant in fall, usually, or like really early spring.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Like tulips.
Yeah. Because the seeds are still going through that process, I guess, of however long it takes them to kind of be weathered and dry and all that shit to get ready for spring.
Yeah. And they like cold, or like foxgloves, they just take a long time to grow. And so you like trick them into thinking it's their second year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting.
Do you do any like, okay, this is cool territory. Do you do any like seed fermentation or whatever? Do you try to get seeds from everything that you plant? You don't? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, some stuff, but seeds are pretty cheap.
True.
Yeah. Like, I did it with tomatoes. Like, that is just so time consuming. And then
that's what I was wondering about, because what I saw about tomatoes was that they let them like ferment. I don't know how you did it. How did you do it with tomato seeds?
I just put it on a paper towel.
Ah.
Yeah. And so then I had like these weird dried paper towels full of seeds, and like storing that was interesting.
Yeah. And
I did grow some from them, which, it is good to save seeds. I think that's a smart practice. I'm going to try to save zinnia seeds this year because you get like really interesting colors. You just have to know. There's just so much little things to everything.
Weirdly, I see that's where my mind gets excited about this whole gardening thing is
all the little things.
It's specifically like, how do I learn how to take this plant and make it into more plants in the future? Like collecting seeds, knowing how to dry them, and knowing how to at what point they're mature and stuff.
Right. For
some reason, I'm learning that that's what my brain likes about this stuff more so than even eating this stuff. Yeah, I'm like, so I'm just like looking at my plants now as things that produce seeds
That's
that will
awesome.
be more plants.
Hell yeah.
So I don't. That's weird. I never understood plants. I never understood what fruits and vegetables like kind of were as seed containers. I don't
Right.
think before I started thinking about mature seeds and what happens when a tomato falls off of a plant and like like hypothetically sits on the ground and then like rots over the course of a couple months or whatever, and that seed sits there for half a year.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then you get volunteers.
Yeah.
And those volunteers are like the strongest and resistant to disease.
Yeah.
And so me and my friend were always talking about like how it's like right time, the right place. Like it more so the right time, because that's another thing is timing. Because when it's just laying on the ground, it's like, oh, it gets watered. Oh, this amount of heat, perfect. This is what I want. Versus us like doing it in a greenhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm way more into like volunteers.
Yeah. We should, maybe I'll show you this while you're here, but my neighbor down here, he's just a weird, he's this,
I love weird.
I think he's like this guru that like is also mainstream. He like looks like the most normal dude, but you can kind of bring up anything and he just kind of knows everything about it. He's weird. And anyway, he's just this person that around him nature just seems to exist. And yeah, so I'm like out here messing with my pumpkin plants, trying like watering them, thinking about them. Why are they yellow? And like, oh no, they have holes in them and all this stuff. And then I drive my golf cart down to his property and I see this like 50-foot sprawling pumpkin vine that has like 4 pumpkins on it already.
He just threw a pumpkin out.
He just threw a pumpkin in a ditch. I was like, yeah, I thought I'd just leave it alone. And I was like, I hate you, kind of, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
And he has 2 of them. They're just beautiful. They're so healthy looking.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's like sometimes the more energy we put towards something, the worse it is. Mm-hmm. Versus like, oh, you're doing great. Like, you're going to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I hear they want to live, you know?
Right.
They
want to
try
grow.
to live.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know this term like lazy farming? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you fuck with that?
I'm not really sure exactly, but if you saw my farm, you'd probably think that because I just don't weed a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Weeds don't bother me as like I know some people come and they're like, oh, like so overwhelmed. And it's so interesting because some people are like, where are all your flowers? I'm like, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
You don't see them, but people just see weeds.
Yeah.
And so there's just like, because I was showing my friend a row of basil I did, and she's like, where? I'm like, oh, just because there's just so much green that everything just blends. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's right here.
I don't think I like the term lazy gardener
Because it's probably really still hard.
yeah, and it's like it's just like I understand what you're saying is time efficient gardener or like labor efficient gardener. Like I'm not gonna weed everything. I'm gonna make mulch on the ground or whatever. But it's still like smart, and it's still like laziness isn't a virtue, I guess, and that's why I don't like it because it's
Right.
just like it icks me out. But
Yeah.
but I do like that method a lot of using mulch and like almost creating more like woods, almost like a woods environment or whatever, like a forest floor environment to protect
Yeah.
the moisture in the ground. Like I think that shit is just so smart.
Yeah, and natural. Like I feel like that's more how we're supposed to farm.
I mean, it seems definitely like the only reason my garden is drying out right now, the top of it anyway, is because there's nothing between the sun and it.
Right.
Like, and if there was mulch and if there was like that layer of shady protection or whatever, like it wouldn't be drying out like
Yeah.
that.
I have some areas on my farm that the soil has gotten exposed, and I'm having such a hard time gardening there. And so I think I just planted some marigolds there. So once those are done, I'm just going to put like the craziest thick leaf mulch on them from just all the trees around. Because I don't really understand how it got so dry. And maybe that side doesn't get watered that much, but it's really the sun hitting the soil.
Yeah.
And like having bare soil is, I don't have a lot of bare soil on my property. I mean, my mower is like, I think bent and like scraping into so I have like in the pathways or whatever, there's some like soil exposed.
Yeah.
And then I have crazy sandy soil.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't got a test yet, but I have pockets of the red clay, but I have mainly like sand and white clay.
White clay?
Which is really, yeah, I was like, I'm going to bottle it. Because, I mean, what's the difference between like French green clay and white clay?
I have no idea.
Like when you buy it at a grocery store.
Right. That is interesting.
I mean, I'm sure it will be great for the skin. You know?
That is really interesting. Yeah.
I got to figure out where the white clay is because I'll dig some up sometimes.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, how do they compare, like the red clay? Do you know how that soil compares to the red clay and as far as holding in nutrients or moisture or whatever?
So red clay has a lot of nutrients, but it doesn't hold on to water, I think. Like it might just drain. Where sandy soil has good drainage, but I think it lacks nutrients. Yeah. I really have to do a soil test, but I think I'm missing like calcium.
Yeah, I'm so curious about that because like sandy soil in.
And there's no rocks either.
Huh.
Like there is, like my friend lives up in Madison, so she has the red clay and she digs and it's rock. Dig, rock. Like I dug a little hole with her and I was like, this sucks. Where at my house it's like you barely touch the shovel and it goes right in. When it's more moist. Like I feel like it's been very dry. And so things are a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But if you get to where it's more moist, it's, yeah. And like I have a forest area because a lot of people are like, they brought all this sand here. I'm like, there's no way that my whole property, because even in the wooded area, you'll see the tree and then there's some sand. Or like when the trees fall, it's sandy. Yeah. So maybe it was underwater.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. Like,
because Pilot Mountain.
Yeah.
Don't they have shells in the walls?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, do y'all have the river down there?
There's like some lakes, but I think it's kind of Walkertown. I am not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Blues Creek is
That's
not
what I was thinking.
the furthest thing away from Walkertown. It's closer to Walnut Cove, I guess. But I'm trying to think if the Yadkin goes down y'all's way. I actually don't know. Well,
I don't think so.
yeah, maybe not. Either way, it sounds interesting. I would think that would have to do with water in some way, but I have no fucking idea.
Right, because there's no rocks.
Yeah,
that's like the weirdest part is like there's no, unless they like took all the rocks out to farm, but because there is like an old pear tree and nut trees, two old apple trees.
Has the land been used as a farm before?
I think so, because there are fruit trees. It might have been like an orchard, and then there is a lot of flowers that were planted. Yeah.
Very curious.
I know, it's so exciting.
So, I want to ask you about your tattoos.
Okay.
What's up with your tattoos?
This is like a little green snake that I keep finding in my garden.
Oh, yeah?
And I seen it this year, and it's a green tree snake, which is actually a rare snake. And they're like bright green.
Really?
Yeah, it's so cool.
Huh.
Yeah, I was in my mulberry tree.
Yesterday morning, I had all this wood out here stacked up for a while. And I knew that there was a black snake in there somewhere. I'd seen it kind of in and out. I finally took all the wood apart and found like 2 or 3 different rodent nests. So the snake was having a good time probably with them. So anyway, I saw him around recently. I'd messed up his whole fucking house, and that probably was annoying for him. And yesterday morning, I went out to my garden to to just see how things were doing, and right behind me, I just heard whipping, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Okay, it stopped." 2 seconds later, it was whipping again, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And I like ran away and looked, and the snake was under the porch, like looking at me. I had just walked right up on him, and we just kind of caught each other off guard. So anyway, he went his way, and I went mine. He's a really cool guy. We just haven't bonded, you know.
So there's a big black snake roaming around my garden, and I'm not sure if it's the same one that is in my garage. So there might be two on my property, but yesterday my dog like started growling, and I looked and I was like, ooh, and the snake was like going up, and I was like, please don't go in my attic. But I just like shut the door and left it. And then maybe like a week ago, we hear this like screaming, and it was a bunny getting suffocated by the snake. And my dog took the bunny from the snake.
Really?
Yeah. Which I kicked her out of the garden because it was in the fenced-in garden. I was like, cool, you know, like, sucks. It was a bunny, but also the bunny's in my garden. Like, thank you, snake. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And somehow she got in, and then all I see is, like, her eating this little bunny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, you took her from the snake? And so I went to look at the snake, and he's, like, taking off. And then the next day, I have a chicken sitting on eggs, and he is literally behind the chicken eating, like, has an egg in his mouth and then has one in his throat.
Jesus.
And the chicken is just, like, on top of eggs. And I was like, what is going on? And so I touched the snake, and it, like, kind of jumped at me. And I was like, okay.
He jumped at you?
Yeah, which I barely touched. I don't know. Like, I thought, I feel like we can be good friends with snakes, but maybe there's just a line. They don't want to be touched or something.
Yeah.
It seems like people pick them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. Some people will fuck with them. I don't mind having like a healthy, distant relationship with them.
And they could keep copperheads away.
Exactly. I've heard if you have black snakes around that you don't have copperheads around.
Okay, cool.
Is what I've heard.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So black snakes are ideal for that.
Yeah.
For that reason. But yeah, I mean, like, I just practice a healthy distance with them. I also don't want to run them off, you know, like
right.
they get annoyed with people or scared of people.
Oh, maybe I shouldn't have touched that one.
You know, I don't think you touching the snake was disrespectful. I just, I really like animals, and I think I really connect with animals, and I usually like domesticated animals. I usually am pretty good at noticing sort of like ways to interact with them that works with them. Whereas some people show affection by bothering other living creatures. I don't do that. I don't like bothering other like animals.
Yeah.
And snakes are one that I just am like, the less awkward I can make it for you to be around,
right,
the better, I think, with one exception. One day I was in my basement, and a snake about that big started scurrying across my floor from outside. It like, if it had been any other time, I wouldn't have seen it come in, but I was like in my room, in my downstairs room, like where the where the garden stuff and where the laundry room is. And it just like came in the door, and I was just like, "What are you doing? You didn't knock or anything. You just came in." So I had to upset him by picking him up and taking him off somewhere else. But
at least you didn't kill him.
Yeah, too small to kill. It was awesome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It was literally like that. I thought it was a worm, but I was like, worms don't move that quick.
Yeah, it's crazy. Chickens will eat small snakes like that.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of gnarly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that snakes. And then I learned after looking it up, there's a worm snake.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've seen some in my yard. Because I was like, oh, you're a really big worm. I had like the weirdest thing with worms for a really long time.
What's this?
I don't know. They're just, I mean, slugs too. Small snakes. It's just anything that's like slimy and little. maggots are like freaky as fuck.
Yeah.
But like earthworms, I'm around them so much that, I still like jump. But I'm like, okay, whatever. My heart's not racing.
Or so earthworms make you jump a little bit? Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, and when I was younger, my dad threw some worms at me. I don't know if that plays a role.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, worms don't bother me at all. Well, specifically, earthworms don't bother me at all. But anything that's firmer will probably bother me. Like those ones that are curled up in like a
grubs?
3/4. Yeah.
Like the white ones?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That type
with like
shit.
the weird little eyeballs.
I don't prefer to. I'm not gonna want to touch those necessarily.
Yeah, I don't want to touch that either.
Yeah.
But like a turtle, a lizard, spiders, like I don't mind like grabbing them if they're in my way or something. I love turtles.
Oh, I love turtles and frogs. I'm not likely to touch a spider.
I love frogs.
Yeah.
I'm always like petting them. And they like let me for a minute. I'm like, oh my God. One came into my garage when I was making flowers the other day.
Yeah.
Arranging flowers, yeah. And I screamed because it like jumped and I didn't really see what it was.
Yeah.
And then my dog's like instantly like trying to get whatever it is. And I'm like, no.
I saw one night out here at my fire pit. I was like just trying to burn some stuff away, and I saw movement, and I looked down, and I saw the weirdest thing that I'd never seen before. Usually when I see a frog, it's just like doing its frog thing, hopping around how a cartoon would. This guy reached a point where like this stick was in front of him or something, and he like started grabbing onto it and like doing like walking like this, like a different. And I was like, holy shit! He did, and he walked right across it, like a different kind of animal would or something, holding on to shit.
Yeah.
And then he got to the end of it and started hopping again.
How awesome!
I didn't know frogs did that.
I don't really either.
Yeah. That's
awesome, but they do kind of have like the hands to grip stuff.
Yeah.
That's so cool. My friend at Sun and Soul Farms, they just made a pond because that really helps with like biodiversity. Probably for like the insects or something. I'm not sure, but I want a pond now.
Yeah. I think that is supposed to help with slugs too. Like, well, if you have an environment that is bringing around frogs and birds, I believe that's
they'll eat slugs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, especially if you have ducks, will eat the shit out of slugs.
Oh, hell yeah! I don't have too many slugs, but there's a lot of birds where I'm at. Which I don't know. Like when you enter Walkertown, it says like bird sanctuary, which I don't really know what that means. But there is a lot of birds on my property.
I think that just generally means that you can't shoot wild birds in certain areas.
Oh, that's awesome. All of Walkertown? Yes.
Yeah, maybe. Very progressive Walkertown.
Right. Oh, it's so funny because I don't mow like the front of my lawn because I'm right off of Old Hollow Road.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so I built like a like scrap wood fence across the property because I have a dog. And so that like little area of grass I never mow.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure they're like, who is this person?
I grew up kind of not far from wherever you're at, I'm sure. I grew up on Old Walkertown Road, right there at like the old, like there's a car wash there or whatever, in Ogburn Station, where Pulliam's is and stuff.
Like there's a cemetery?
If you know.
Oh, that's New Walkertown.
Yeah, probably.
Is it like by the train tracks?
Yeah.
Or like there's like a train
right
thing?
by the train tracks, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm like 5 minutes from there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Mrs. Fry's house I bought.
Mrs. Fry.
Yeah. She planted, there's tons of flower, like rhododendrons, like a whole thing of them. Yeah. It's pretty. So
you were a little while ago talking about what all you grow. What all you grow again? What is just like your favorite shit to grow other than the flowers? Like what
so my friend came from New Orleans and during the hurricane, and she brought a butternut squash, and so we saved all the seeds, and I grew maybe like 6 or 8 plants, and I have like maybe 12 butternut squashes.
Nice.
Yeah, and so that was The first time, I think I used to always just grow like one or two of things and not really get a yield. And so now I know, like, if you want to sell stuff at the market, you need to grow 50 to 100 plants of them. It's because you're going to have stuff fail, yada, yada. So that was really fun to grow.
Yeah.
And so I'm really trying to think about winter because I want to sell through winter. And so I'm growing a acorn squash that needs to be like stored for 5 months and then it tastes really good.
Really?
Yeah. And so that will like put me through winter.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm trying it and seeing. I have a basement, but it is pretty moist down there. So maybe I got to figure that out.
I just got an acorn squash at the store last week and took seeds from it. And
Awesome.
Trying to see what that'll
Plant
do, I guess,
some.
next year. Yeah, when
Plant them now. Plant some.
You think plant now? You think plant some now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah. I mean, there is a thing with like having the fruit be on the plant for a while, but I wonder is it like that with everything? Because the butternut squash, like she got one butternut squash from her plant. She lives in New Orleans, so it's very humid. But I don't know. Seed saving is very interesting, and I think just experimenting is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one cucumber on the vine right now that I'm going to try to get seeds from.
Awesome.
And I think most people probably don't think that that's really necessary with cucumber in particular, I guess, because it's just kind of, I think, it's just like a cheap plant that dies pretty frequently or whatever. But I don't know. I just think it's interesting. I just think it's cool to let them over mature and to see what the seed saving process is like.
And then the thing about seed saving is like so now the seed that you are going to save is more like it has knowledge of this area. So that's really cool.
That is cool.
And then like diseases and stuff. My friend is really big on seed saving, and she would say, because say you had two different varieties of cucumbers, then they like something happens with the seeds. They like cross pollinate, and so you have to like only grow one variety of something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's what I'm looking forward to with pumpkins. I want to explore that a lot because with pumpkins, you have with pumpkins it's kind of easy, I think, to cross pollinate like that if they're close together and like bees are fucking with them in that moment. And I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of it too simply, but I like the idea of picking like 2 or 3 of my favorite varieties of pumpkin and kind of blending them biologically and seeing what happens, seeing if I can come up with something weird.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, so fun. And I'm not sure, it might take a few years of that. I'm not sure exactly how that works.
Yeah.
But this year I've also grown Velor bush beans, which is like a purple green bean. Yeah.
Purple all the way.
Dark purple, yeah.
Yeah.
It does like turn green, like a tie-dye green when you cook it.
Gotcha. Yeah. My dragon tongues are, kind of a purple
Purpley.
And greenish blend.
And then the seeds are like pink and purple, right?
I haven't seen them yet.
Okay.
So I haven't let one get mature yet. I've got some on there now that I'm just gonna not do anything with and let them fully mature.
So fun.
But yeah, I think they're supposed to be weird tie-dye looking.
Oh, right, the beans.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew them 1 year. I'm trying to grow less things, but more of things. Because I definitely, my friend would always say, like, you have, what did she say? I have conquered biodiversity. Because I'll just plant so many things, and like, a lot of people do like 6 to 8 blockings, and I'll do like 3 feet blockings of different things. But I am understanding why people do a 50-foot row of things. It makes it so much easier to harvest. Where I'm like gathering green beans. I'm like, where else did I plant them? Yeah. So there's a lot of things I can do to make my time more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like I enjoy like foraging, so it kind of has a foraging feel. Oh my God. I think in winter, I like cut down trees and inoculated them with mushrooms.
Really? How's
And
that going?
so I did a bunch of different styles. I did a totem stack or something where I put the mushroom, I'm not sure what, sawdust or whatever.
Yeah.
I put it in between logs. No, in like, yeah, stumps type things.
Okay.
And the other day I saw golden oyster pop out.
Oh man.
So it's working. And so I'm interested to see which style works the best. I'm like, it's so wet here. And I'm like, God damn it, can it rain?
I know.
Because I'm not watering any of them. And you should kind of water them if they get wet. But I was reading, so I cut the tree down. And then you have a stump. So I inoculated the stump and like the root. And those, if it's perfect conditions, can last a decade.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It has to be the right conditions.
Yeah, that's like I've got a lot of shade over here. I'd really love to play with that. And there's a farmer in Powtown who is a gourmet mushroom farmer.
No way.
And I've reached out to him like 3 times because I met him at a party I played music at. And he was like, yeah, man, hit me up. And I hit him up, and he will not get back to me. And I think it's because he doesn't want me to cut into his market in any way, which I'm not even trying to I'm not trying to sell him or whatever. I just
Community over competition.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, there's so many people that want to buy stuff.
Yeah. And
Scarcity mindset.
I guess I liked the challenge of when I read up on mushroom farming and what's difficult about it. A lot of it is about getting it into market fast enough because they have such a short shelf life or whatever. But that sounds like a fun challenge. But I'm not convinced that I'm even trying to be a full-time farmer or whatever. I'm just like trying to grow some shit and give it to people and
Eat it.
and
Hell
learn
yeah.
about growing it, learn how to keep growing it, shit like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm more in this for the necessary like survival skill that it is, more so than definitely a business venture. You know, some crops that I'm interested in doing would strictly be for business venture purposes, but the food part and the seed part, that's really just, I want to know how to, if all hell breaks loose tomorrow, I'd like to know I had some kind of supply of nutrition kind of around me,
Hell yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I feel like, or I kind of have like this hope that a lot of people feel that way because of like what happened with COVID.
Yeah.
Because if things really did shut down where like they couldn't send us food from California, like, do we even have enough farmers that could support North Carolina?
Right.
You know, probably not.
It's a good question.
You know, and it's just smarter to be more self-sufficient.
Yeah. 100% agree. I mean, there's definitely still some giant farms around here, and there's some people farming, but I don't know the answer to that question.
And the giant farm is like soy and corn.
Yeah.
And, you know, those are probably just animal feed.
Probably.
Yeah. Like, I wonder, it's kind of crazy when you see these big ass cornfields. It's like, how are you growing this much corn?
Yeah. We should ask my neighbor sometime. He's in crop insurance. So he grew up farming, and then he became a crop insurance person when.
What is that?
That is that's insurance for people who like are full-time farmers, and this used to be an industry that only the government had control of because of farming subsidies or something. But then they opened it up to the private market, and he started an insurance company that insures people's crops. So if something goes wrong with it, they don't lose their whole year's income or whatever if they lose their crop.
Crazy.
Which is pretty fucking badass.
Yeah.
But anyway, my neighbor could probably answer that question hypothetically for us and give us some insight if we ever pick his brain about it. But I mean, yeah, I like suspect that is a byproduct of the COVID thing. I think more people, I can at least anecdotally say in my life that way more people who are like concerned with this whole experience and who aren't like, I don't know. There's a lot of different attitudes about the last this experience in the last couple years of our lives as a community, and I don't know how to describe the chunk of them. I think it's the skeptical parts. I think it's the skeptical people or something that don't necessarily feel like everything is okay and everything is gonna be okay. I notice a lot of blossoming of like, I want to fuck it. I just want to start a farm right now. I want to get a homestead. I want to at least have a lifestyle where we're producing something that we need to live. And yeah, for better or worse, or regardless of anything, I think that it's a positive outcome of this whole thing. If it is true that more people are in touch with the need that they have to participate in their own survival, you know?
Right. Hell yeah. I think so too.
Yeah. You moved here in 16, 18?
16.
2016.
Or 6 years ago. So yeah, we're in 22.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes, 2016. Crazy.
Man, it's hard to believe it's 2020. Oh, so I was asking you about your tattoos. So what are tattoos for you?
An expression of myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah, it's like a lucky kitty.
Oh, that's cool.
That's the color of Garfield.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I see that you have, like, it looks like there's a lot of plants in your tattoos.
Yeah, I have, I found this dinosaur when I was at Shady Acres in San Jose, a little toy dinosaur. Yeah. I probably will only get more plants.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 I hope you don't mind me asking. I just curious about tattoos. Every time somebody comes over and has them, it's another thing like gardening or like anything else. It's just people have such different takes on what tattoos are, what purpose they serve, and like where they come from. You know, like what part of the identity that it is that they express. And I'm always fascinated by it.
Yeah. I think when I was younger, it was just kind of something that it didn't look right on women or something. Like there was a little gender role thing, or like almost to be out of society, you know. So it's like there is a part of me that it's like a rebellion thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you want to judge the book by its cover? Well, then fuck you.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I have a friend actually that her mom would disown her if she got a tattoo. Because your body is your temple. And it's like, well, I treat my body like a temple. You know? So I that's interesting to me. It's like, damn.
Temples are actually really decorative.
That's what someone just told me the other day. I was like, that's right.
They got stained glass windows.
There's tons of like writing on the outside.
Yep.
That's so awesome. Someone totally said that the other day.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah. And like, I just, like, that is interesting to me, to like not like someone for that type of shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I used to have like really long hair and dreads and like a beard down to here. And that too was that was kind of the part of the inspiration for me, aside from I was experimenting with like being anti-vanity at the time. But I did enjoy the experience of people thinking that I would be some sort of stoner, hippie, useless person. And then, you know, come to find out instead I was kind of like, I don't know. Perhaps I fancied myself given to intellectual conversation, and I didn't smoke weed, and like I wasn't stoned or whatever all the time. Like
they're like, whoa.
Yeah, the cops in King used to pull me over all the fucking time, and later heard, you know, that like I heard a story that like that definitely I was profiled for whatever, like heard evidence that I was profiled for my appearance. And I kind of got a kick out of that because I was like, yeah, I'm used to it. Yes, I've got musical instruments in my car and I look like this. Go ahead, pull me over. It's
Search
just going to be a
everything.
waste of your time.
Yeah.
It's not a problem for me.
Hell yeah.
I'm just a lazy hippie. I don't have to be at work or anything.
I love that. Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Find ways to be countercultural or whatever sometimes. But
Yeah, hell yeah.
yeah, I hear you though. I guess it's like I don't know why it is surprising to me the way that, I don't know why I'm taking it here, but anyway, I don't like the way that that phrase, like your body being a temple, I think that kind of belongs to the religious now. And it's odd because definitely tattoos derive from religious traditions. Definitely people have been tattooing themselves to kind of mark their religious identities for a very long time. So it's just odd. It's just odd over the course of the last like century how many religious traditions have then kind of fallen off into this category of not religious or not accepted by religious folks, when really that's probably what what a lot of these things started out as: piercings and tattoos and whatever earthy hippie lifestyles and whatnot.
Yeah, religion is always so interesting to me because what is a blessing for me is to breathe air. Yet that's not like a big concern of religious people.
Yeah.
And that should be. And water. Like these are blessings. Like, what?
I was just thinking about that this morning. I mean, like I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like kind of thinking about the political divide. I think that like a lot of things don't make sense, but one of the most weird things that don't make sense is like conservatives. They're like people on the right side of the modern spectrum, they're right about a great many things and they're wrong about a great many things. But the thing that makes the least sense about them is they're like, and I'm speaking maybe really broadly about people that we probably both would generalize about or whatever. But the idea of like the conservative, like Republican identity, not valuing the environment heavily and not like seeing it as a natural resource that needs to be conserved.
Right.
That just makes some obvious sense. I understand that some people maybe they use this in weird ways to like be anti-capitalistic or something. And that annoys me too. But truly, I mean, we are taught these are natural resources, and it probably is a really good idea to be conservative in every sense of the word with what the environment is as a resource. That's the most absurd thing I think about the modern day, is that those two things don't go together: conservatism and environmentalism.
Right. It blows my mind.
Yeah. They should go together.
Yeah. And, a woman's body is really no one's business but her own. I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, that was something that a friend of mine and I talked about. I think that's probably true. I think they're like that's where shit gets crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. Like,
crazy.
it's not that crazy. It's just
there's just so many other elements that
there are. Another friend of mine took me to task for it because like I'm not able still in this conversation. If we talk about that, I won't be able to express everything I think because I'm not clear on everything I think, and it's just not worth it to me to try to do it. But the right question that conservatives ask is, do unborn people have rights? And is an unborn person separate from a woman? Those are the two right questions to ask. The answers I don't have. I'm just saying that's the two questions that they ask and that I can understand why they ask them. I still land in a place where I'm like, I still couldn't take the position that tells me or anyone that you can't do what you got to do.
Right.
I can't take that position. But I think that, whatever. I think those two questions are fair to ask.
I don't think an unborn child is separate from the woman
That's cool.
until it like comes out. That's what I just think.
Yeah.
But there's just like so many elements to like the, protecting the woman. Like she has to give birth and die. Like that's kind of crazy. Because there's complications that happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what they're saying is like, even if you're going to die, you still have to have this baby. What?
If that's what anyone said, I would definitely disagree with that. I think where I get, I do feel some sympathy. Like, I've done my best to really listen to people who think the opposite stuff and to have conversations with them. And the times where I'm faced with the question of, like, what if that isn't what we're talking about, then it does get harder to talk about, because I think what has always been obvious to me is that we are definitely talking about ending lives. That's kind of what it is. It's like, it seems like that's what it is. So what we're talking about is ending lives, occasionally unnecessarily, not to save a life or whatever. In which case, it's trippy to think about, and it challenges, I think, a lot of my more natural tendencies, because I think my natural tendency is to be like,
save it all.
Yeah.
Love.
yeah. No, maybe that isn't. I think my natural tendency is to say, do what you want.
I think that's a good.
But if we're talking about a human, it does get harder.
Yeah.
If we're talking about if what we're doing is killing people, then I'm not sure that I am right about what I'm saying. So I might not be consistent with myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's good to kill people.
Right. And then people as in fetus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't fucking know.
Yeah. I always say to men, so if I get raped, I have to have that child.
No, yeah, that's where I'm like 100% no.
And people are like, it's a blessing. And it's like, if this blessing is going to be a reminder of something that is, very traumatic, I just don't understand how that child can get the right amount of love.
I just could not impose that. I just couldn't do it. And a dear friend of mine, after the last one where we talked about this, she said to me again, she said that the baby that's a byproduct of that is innocent. It's not that person that committed a crime, so it doesn't make sense to terminate that person's life because of somebody else's crime. And like rationally, I get that, but emotionally, I cannot go to that place. Like I just cannot. I cannot understand it as necessarily like wholly just to enforce that a victim of that would carry that out.
Right.
Just can't do it.
And that's a good way to like see it though, as that is innocent, the being or whatnot.
Yeah.
And that's cool because it came from a woman. Because usually men are like, oh, I don't know. But like that would be an interesting take from a woman that, possibly could have that happen to her. Yeah. I don't know. I worked at a child's home for 2 weeks in Belize. And it was really sad. Just the amount of abandonment and the amount of love that they did not receive.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And so there's that side of like adoption. It's like, who the fuck are adopting these kids? No one.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Everything is just way more complicated.
It is. It's like really hard to come to, like permanent, perfect answers to these things. And when it comes to that one, it's like, I think that's all I often feel the need to acknowledge is that there's still some ambiguity in a lot of these issues that we're fighting about and that like we're worried about. And, I understand the purpose of slogans. I understand the purpose of walking around with signs and different things people might do to express their frustration with certain conclusions. But I hate slogans. I hate like simplified answers.
Right.
I hate when it's like, let's take this complex issue and boil it down to something really, really simple. Like, like fuck your opinion, my opinion's better. Or whatever. Like that doesn't ever work for me. I often feel the need to just like find where it's complicated and let it be okay that it's complicated and that we don't have an answer yet,
Yeah.
because I think complicated curiosity is better sometimes than like simple conclusions.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Because life is just really complicated.
Yeah. It's real fucked up a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I do feel like the less government in my personal life, the better.
Me too. Me too.
Because, at the end of the day, you have to deal with the decisions that you made.
Mm-hmm.
And that, ultimately will be the hardest or the easiest thing.
Were you like raised with politics being a big thing in your familial identity?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I really wasn't so much either. It was more like a religious version of politics, but not politics per se. Was religion a big thing for you coming up?
Mm-mm. We went to, I want to say Sunday school. Is that we went to something when we were little, but then it stopped. I can't remember why. But we would go, my aunt and uncle are pretty religious, and so we would go, like, maybe on Christmas Eve to church or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were younger, and then
Yeah.
it just kind of stopped. Like, I ate the bread,
Yeah.
and I'm not baptized. And my aunt's like, you're not supposed to do that. I was like, well, everyone else is having bread.
Let's see. So was that a Catholic type?
I think so.
Okay.
Like the little round piece of bread.
Yeah. We
Cracker.
like I was from a Baptist church and we did the little round piece of bread, but it didn't have any
And then Jesus' blood.
You're right. Communion and baptism, that is how a lot of denominations get defined. Like that's a big part of it. But I know as a Baptist that you were expected to do both of those things, but I'm not sure that it was explicit that you weren't supposed to take communion if you weren't baptized. So maybe that's a different tradition than where I came from.
I think it's like you're baptized and then you get your communions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. So like it sounds like politically and religiously sort of neutral, which is unusual. Mm-hmm. So is your family just kind of chill and like not looking for things to bitch about?
Yeah.
Looking for things to fight with people about? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like my dad watched football all the time and The Simpsons.
Oh, cool.
I would say like slight hippie vibes from my parents.
Okay.
Both worked full time. My mom probably did a little bit more than my dad. My dad's grandmother was my dad's mom was very interesting because she was very like, the men get fed first, like bring all your uncle's food. And my dad had 3 girls and we're like, we're like, they can bring us food. I don't know if it is just like seeing women like kind of serve men that created me and my sisters to just be very strong-willed or what, but we were just so different.
Yeah.
We grew up in like a super diverse area in California, so there was lots of different cultures around us. Very high pace.
That is interesting. Mm-hmm. I come from 2 pretty traditional families, but in both cases, yeah, not really any of that stuff. So that's kind of interesting. My mom's side, a little bit matriarchal. Like my grandmother is the leader of a family of like, 50 people or something.
Wow.
So she's just very she calls the shots, and it's like mostly women on that whole side of the family. So it's just a lot of, I don't know what that energy,
Feminine.
and then there's some, and then whatever. So then there's that alternative energy that exists in pockets in places, but a lot of I don't know what else to say about that. And then on the other side, definitely more of the male, like traditional, probably like 1950s mid-century male identity influence. My grandfather definitely, was a hoss of a dude, but yeah, didn't breed necessarily a culture of I don't know, hyper housewife type personalities. Like the women worked, everybody cooked, like we
Nice.
all did. It wasn't a thing like that. So that's interesting to hear that was a thing.
Yeah, like my dad would cook sometimes, but it was like really gross, and I think that's how he got out of a lot of stuff. Is he would just like do it wrong. And so like that's what I did. I was like, well, if he doesn't have to help, I'm not helping. And then later on I felt really bad for like not helping my mom out.
Yeah.
But there is some like really weird artists in my family, which I think there's like dyslexic that is around. Like I think I might be dyslexic. My dad I feel like is. And then because there's like a hyper creativity that comes usually if you're dyslexic. And so there's just certain people in the family that I'm like, I bet that's... Because I have an uncle, Randy, that is really a genius, but he, like, got lost in drugs. And that's a thing sometimes with dyslexic because of shame from feeling like you're stupid for not being able to read. And then just, like, really good artists. My Uncle Chuck, my cousin Joe. Weird artists.
That is interesting.
Because it's passed down from... it's passed down from someone in the family. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently isn't it like a lot more common than people think?
I think 1 in 10 people have it.
Yeah.
I thought I read something 1 in 4, but then I read recently 1 in 10, which is like a big amount, and I think it has more to do with how the brain is programmed. It's just like I don't do well with like reading stuff on the board or reading a book. But if I'm doing stuff hands-on, like I'll understand it.
And you had mentioned art too with feathers and stuff. So like so for you, what kind of art does this produce? What kind of art do you make?
I dabble, but I would probably do like some kind of wreath with the wings, or maybe like frame and then like spread them out. Maybe some like dried stuff or something.
So kind of like still nature oriented art. Do you do that a lot?
I don't do it a lot, but I'm getting like my workspace really dialed in so that I can jump into things whenever I have a little bit of inspiration. I really like to do collages, and I haven't done those in a few years.
Yeah.
And I really want to like add natural kind of elements to like paper kind of collages. And then I do photography. I've been doing some cyanotype printing recently, which is like sun prints. And you can do it with like photography negatives.
Oh, that's cool.
Or like a fern, which I've been doing a lot of ferns.
That's cool. And so what kind of artists are these people you're describing that have been kind of throughout your family?
Like paint, like my cousin Joe, he might be like a fine painter. Fine paint. It's just like really trippy. Like this is actually one of his drawings that he gave to my grandmother. And she was like, get this out of my house. Because she was probably like really Catholic.
Yeah.
And she's like, get this devil stuff out. And so I was like, mine. And then my uncle Chuck, just strange kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we might have reached a good stopping point. I don't know. I kind of feel like walking around outside and showing you what there is around here. Do you know what pawpaw trees are? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have any of those?
I don't. I got like the little pawpaw, and I let it turn black, but I don't know what happened to it.
Gotcha.
Because I think you kind of like need those seeds like need to ferment or something.
Yeah.
But I seen on your Instagram a pawpaw fruit.
So there's some down here.
Crazy.
And there's like little trees started. And if you wanted to take one this winter, you could always come get one.
Oh, that'd be so awesome. I would love to.
Cool.
Oh, hell yeah. And they have fruit on them right now?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, if you want, maybe we can take a quick tour.
Yeah, I would love that.
All right, cool. Well, Ashley, thank you for coming, doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me some insight into your family history and everything else you're up to.
Yeah. Awesome.
You want to talk one more time about like which farmers markets people could come check you out at?
Yes. The Corner Market in Greensboro. West Market Street. I forget the address, but it's right next to a church in a big parking lot. We moved. We used to be really small. But the Corner Market, 8 to 12.
Nice.
Yeah.
All
and
right.
then Deep Roots Co-op.
Deep
I
Roots
sell flowers
Co-op.
there.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good vendors at the Corner Market.
Yeah, I need to check that out.
Yeah, Greensboro.
All right, then. Well, thank you again.
Thank you. So much fun.
All right.